Hello, everybody. I'm Andres Garcia, and today we're going to be going over a very basic calculator in React. If you're part of GYM Coding Club, this will be 2 weeks worth of lessons, and if you're not, welcome, and thank you for joining me as we dive into this. So this is very similar to the Web Dev Simplified video on YouTube, but I've changed a lot of the back-end code. And just so we have a good look at what we expect our final product to look like, it'll be something like this, very basic calculator. Take the result, keep doing math to it, for example, all of them work. Other protections, like you can't have more than one decimal, like I'm spamming right here, it doesn't work. All of this math does work well, obviously, and delete works, clear works, all of that. And then we have this kind of nice gradient and UI setup. So right off the bat, we're going to go to Code Sandbox, and you're just going to want to make a React project and delete all of this content right now. And then I'm going to copy paste some code in, and while I'm doing that, you guys feel free to copy it down on your end, and I'm going to basically walk us through what I'm doing here because this can be a little bit confusing. So while I'm explaining it, feel free to start writing it into your code. So basically here I've created a few div tags. So what a div tag is essentially it holds very basic content. So for example, I could put hi in here and you'll see it just shows hi. And it can also hold other tags within it. So for example, here I have a div tag within a div tag, and then here I have a div tag within a div tag within a div tag. So it helps organize your code essentially, and it can hold content within it. And you'll see right here a lot of class names. So what class names do is basically we're telling the code that this div tag has specific formatting, which we're going to get into later. And I wanted to use the calculator grid formatting. Now, the code doesn't really know what calculator grid is yet, so it just makes a basic div tag. But soon enough, we're going to explain what that looks like, and it's going to start to take on a totally new shape. Before we get into that, though, let's quickly start just making our buttons. So once again, I'm going to copy paste some code into here, and you guys can take the moment to go ahead and type that up. So here, I've essentially made a bunch of buttons. Now, these are very standard buttons. They're just your normal buttons that come in React. And for example, if I click them, they just serve as normal buttons. They don't have anything special within them. But we do have some with class names. So you'll see a repeated one here. There's a span to class name. And so that's another button formatting that we're going to have to do later. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a few moments to look through this. And real quick, make sure this is imported at the very top. This styles.css file is where we're going to define all of these class names here. And then make sure that you have the ordering of these buttons correct, or else it's going to format oddly. And you'll notice really here, again, I just want to point this out while you're copying this down. I have the opening tag, so you'll see I put this in these less than and greater than symbols. The content in the middle, so whatever I want to display in the button. And then I have the closing tag. Now you'll understand that it's the closing tag because it has this / there to let you know. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we're going to start going into our styles.css file. I'm just going to save this by using Control S. I probably don't need to, but just want to use that just to be safe. And quickly, I'm going to just Control A, delete. I want to start with a fresh styles.css file. Right away, I want you guys to copy this in. This is basically just going to help us with the formatting of everything later. You don't really need to understand what this is doing, but basically just saying everything I want it to use box sizing border box. And then after that, we are going to start with our overall background. So we're going to start with the body here, and I'm going to write body. And then I'm going to open my curly bracket, and basically I'm saying that the body, which is a generalized name here, body, you'll see it's not like a class name, it's just a name, is essentially all of the website in the back. And so you'll see here we're going to make a margin of 0, and then we're going to make a background here, which you can't fully see. Let me close this a little bit. Which basically is just a linear gradient, so that's what makes this cool background here. And you can make this any color you want. For example, I could go over here and, I don't know, let's just switch this to a capital C. And, never mind, that didn't do anything. Let's do a 9 here, and then let's put a capital C. And you'll see that's a very similar color. Let's put an A here. Let's put a B here. Trying to get a distinct color. Not exactly working out for me there. Hold on. Let's put 0, 0. Let's put 0 here as well. And I'm still in the green family. Hold on, hold on. Let's get F. Okay, well, I guess that's just how it's going to be for me. I cannot escape the green family of colors. Oh. Yeah, there we go. I did it. So here you'll see I can make this any gradient that I want. In fact, for this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it to this red. I kind of like it. Hopefully that bought you enough time to copy this into here. And now you'll see us start with this new thing I copy pasted. You're going to see us start to use these class names. And you'll know it's a class name from over here because, oh, you can match it obviously, but also this period in front of it will signify that it's a class name. And right here, I'm going to set the display to grid. So that's going to start to build this grid design here. The margin top, so the distance from the top here, is 2 REM. So REM is basically just a standardized unit of space. So for example, if I just did 2, it's going to be very small. REM is like a unit of font. So think of it like almost 2 letters of space here, and that kind of makes sense. And we're going to tell it to go justify in the center. The repeat function is just going to copy paste this 4 comma REM 4 times so that it actually makes 4 distinct columns. So for example, if I got rid of this repeat here, I could just do, I think it's actually just this, right? 6 REM, and then I could do another 6 REM, and I could do another 6 REM. And you'll see I'm basically just doing what the repeat function is going to do here, but I'm just going to write it up a few times. And so I could even like switch this up. I could have like a 4 REM column. That's going to make a thin column. So the repeat function just helps us speed this process up, but really it's not necessary. Here we do something very similar, but we have one column at the top, which is going to be our output column. So you can't see it right now, or our output row, sorry. This is rows. But basically what it is that it is space 7 REM and then also spaced auto. So what auto means is that the height is going to stretch infinitely large as long as it needs to carry all of the content at the top. And that's something that we'll see a little bit later on as we start to fill stuff in. So I'm also going to format within the calculator grid subclass. I'm going to format the buttons. So you'll see all of our button text changes. Basically just going to make some very basic changes here. For example, the font size, the border color, no outlines, and then the background color. Again, this is something that we could change. This last number over here is the opacity. So for example, if I had 1 here, you'll see this goes to full white. And if I have like 0, you'll see it goes to fully transparent. And that's just the opacity. This is the color content. And yeah, so now all of the buttons within the calculator grid div class, which you'll see is right here, and ends down here. So all of these buttons are formatted according to these specifications. Next, I'm also going to add another thing to the button. I'm going to format the hover option. So now you'll see whenever I hover over a button, it's going to change background color. So here I got rid of it. It's not doing anything when I hover over them. Here I'll put it back in, and you'll see when I hover it, I'm essentially telling it to be the exact same, except make it greater opacity, which adds this kind of highlight color that you see here. Additionally, I'm going to add the span to button description. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just making that specific column a little bit wider. So you'll see that the AC button and the equal sign button, their span is a little bit different. After that, I'm going to do a big copy paste, and this one I'll give you guys quite a bit of time to format. And this is the output. So you'll see here, what I'm essentially doing is there's some content that you don't really need to worry about, like grid column here. But also you'll see I'm setting the color over here of the output. I'm setting the display content and the direction. I'm aligning the items in a specific way. This padding here is the distance from when, like, if I was to write a number inside of here, which I actually can, like, hello. You'll see it doesn't start at the very top. It starts at the middle. That's what the padding is doing. What else do we have here? I'm setting the font size. And then this is just help it all fit within the container here. You'll notice it's still not fully looking like how we expect it to. And that is actually because I'm missing a button. So let me go ahead and add it into here. What we're missing is the period button or the decimal button. So that's going to go right after the minus sign. I'm going to slide this into here, put the decimal button, and there we go. Now we have our full calculator grid going here, and it's looking identical basically. So I'm going to go ahead and keep adding a little bit more though. So here, we're going to now format the previous operand. Previous operand is going to be, if you'll notice here, if I have like 2 plus, you'll see this is the previous operand constant, and then here's the current operand content, which will also format right after this. So I'll put this in here. Give me 1 second. There we go. I'll give you guys a moment to write this out, and essentially they're the exact same, but this one is a little bit bigger, the current operand. And you'll also notice that it's the dot output and then the dot another thing. So that's because previous operand here is going to be it's going to be within output, right? So we have to like sub-label it through that. And awesome. Now that you guys have copied this down, we have all of our formatting done. I'm going to hit Control Save here. Back to our app.js class, or our app.js file, excuse me. And right now what I'm thinking we do is, why don't we add the function that's going to, well, like have our buttons do stuff. So right away I'm going to start by coming up towards the top here, and you know what, actually before we even do that, silly goose Andreas moment, let's go ahead and import state from React. For those of you that don't know what state is, it's essentially just a variable. A state is just a variable, but when it updates, it's also going to update the actual display here. So if I had a normal variable and I changed its contents, the display wouldn't update, and so you wouldn't actually see anything go on. So for example, let's say I had some kind of variable here, and I changed its content to, it starts as 1, right? And then I change it later to be equal to 2. The reason why you're seeing this update as I'm changing it here is because it's a state. If it wasn't a state, the actual like browser here wouldn't know to update, and you wouldn't see it change from 1 to 2. That's a very basic reminder about state. We've gone over it in a couple lessons before, and if you're still not fully used to it, you'll kind of get used to it as we go through it in this video, but also plenty of great resources online to quickly catch you up on how we use state. But I'm going to do my best here to show you that as well. So really quickly, I'm going to create our states. So I'm going to come up to the top of our app, and I'm going to just write these out here. I'm going to make a constant, and then you're going to make a bracket here. I'm going to make one of them called current operand, and I'm going to write set CO, and I'm going to explain what this does in a hot second here. And I'm going to say use state, exclamation mark. So let me explain what this line does. Basically, it creates a state that starts with the value of an empty string, and the state is called current operand. And now if I want to change it, instead of a variable where I just do like current operand equals 2 or whatever, instead what I have to do is I have to use the setCO function and actually update it through the function by passing it in as a parameter. You don't really fully need to understand why it works this way, but as long as you understand what's kind of going on, that's good. And then I'm also going to make another one called previous operand, and I'm going to make this set PO. So basically I'm just using an abbreviation here. You can actually set these to whatever you want. Just be easier to follow along if you use the same one as I use. And then finally I'm going to add the display operation. So you might be wondering what all of these represent. The current operand state is this number right here. It's the number that you see in the bold, right? And it's formatted using the current operand div class name. It's not doing that yet in this app, but you'll see in here it is doing that. And then the previous operand is this up here. It's the small text, and that's what we're going to update the state as here. And then the display operation is just this symbol. It's just what operation are we currently using. And I'm going to give you guys a quick second to write this down while I take a quick hydration break. My voice is getting a little dry. Good water. Reminder for all of you to go hydrate right now. And all right, now that we have our state set up, let's actually just go ahead and put these in the right spot in the code, why don't we? So let's go ahead here and go to our previous operand div tag. And I'm going to use curly brackets because that signifies JavaScript code. All of these states are JavaScript and not like the HTML that you see here or the React code that you see there. So in curly brackets here, I'm going to put previous operand. So now, for example, if I come and I set the state set PO to, I don't know, let's do like hello, you'll see that, oh, sorry, let me, actually, I will do this in a quick second, but you'll see here that if I change it in the use state to like hello, now in previous operand, you'll see it there as well because it's checking the value of previous operand and it's putting it into here using JavaScript. It's just a variable. And let's also go ahead and do that for current operand. And then we're going to hold off on adding the display operation for a little bit. Now let's go ahead and make the function that's going to, well, add numbers when we click the buttons. So right away, I'm going to make a function right below where I make my states. And I'm going to use the function keyword, and I'm going to call it add digits. And we're going to have it pass in a digit into here, and then we're going to just, let's see here, set our current operand. Let's worry about the previous operand later. Let's just set it to the current value of current operand plus the digit. So what I'm doing here is essentially I'm going to take the current operand value. So let's say in this situation here, it's 2. And then when I press the button again, I'm going to run this function and it's going to add the digit. So let's say I add the 6 here, and you'll see it adds on to the end, taking the current value and adding the new value onto it. And right now you'll notice that if I click the buttons, it doesn't do anything. And that's because we haven't actually programmed our buttons to do anything in response to that. So what we need to do is actually make the buttons do stuff when we click them. So I'm going to go over here and go to all of my buttons that are a number, and I'm going to do onClick equals, I'm going to make curly brackets. So onClick is going to signify, with the equals here, is going to signify what happens when I click the button. Curly brackets means it's going to be some JavaScript code. And you'll notice if I write just add digit here, and this is the 1 key, so I'll put 1, you'll notice it's going to give me a too many re-renders. It doesn't like that. Because I can't pass a parameter into the function on an onClick. I need to pass a function without parameters. So what I'm going to do is make a nameless function here. So in case you don't know, in basically React, you can make a function with no name by just doing a parentheses and an arrow. That's called an arrow function. And I'm going to, so basically what I've done is I made a new function. For example, I'll make a new one here, add 1, and then I've just done this. So instead of doing what I was doing before here and passing in a parameter, I've already defined it as a specific parameterless function. And so you'll see here now if I click 1, wow, it's adding the digit. And also if I refresh, and let's switch this instead of a nameless function here to just that add 1 function I made earlier, it'll do, oh whoops, it'll do the exact same thing because it's basically the same thing when we do that nameless function, except it's just a little bit cleaner because I don't need to make a new function for each one of my values. I'm just going to use this overall function and then make specific instances of it with the nameless function. And so we're going to have to go ahead and do this for all of our buttons here. So I'm just going to copy paste all of our digit buttons. So I'll make this one for 2. Gonna make one for 3, and this is gonna take a second for all of us here. I'll do it along with you guys. Make sure to skip these like actual math symbols. We're only doing the digits and the period right now, or the decimal sign. Here as well. Here. Here as well. Here. Here as well. How are you guys doing today? I hope you're having a great day. I personally had a great day. It's a little bit late. I don't know if you can tell from the timer, but you know, I'm having a good time right now. I hope you guys are having a great time learning with me as we approach the end of these buttons that I need to add. Great, great, great. And 1 for 0, and I think that should be it. Oh, let me make sure and put parentheses around the decimal sign, or else it's not gonna like that. So let's quickly go ahead and see if this is gonna work. So I'm gonna press 1, it works, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like all of them are working, except now we do kind of have an issue. You see, if I have a decimal, I can just kind of keep adding decimals over and over again. And that's kind of a big issue because that's not, well, how calculators or numbers work. And so we're going to have to add some protection to our add digit function. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to make an if statement. I'm going to say if the digit is equal, and you use triple equal signs in React, if it's equal to a decimal, we're going to check if the current operand has a decimal already in it, using that function there. And actually, we're going to check if it doesn't have one. So if it doesn't have one, the exclamation point, basically, if this is true, it then makes this all false. It just inverts the Boolean value here. So if it doesn't have a decimal, then I'm going to tell it to, well, add a decimal. And or else it's just going to end up skipping that. And then we also need to put this in an else statement. So if it's not a decimal that we're trying to add, just don't even check it. You're all good. So now we'll see here, if I try to add more than one decimal, I'm spamming this button. It won't work thanks to that protection we added. Awesome. Sweet. Okay. What else do we want to do now? Why don't we go ahead and make our clear button? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and make a new function. And we're going to call it clear. And this is a pretty simple function, actually. We're essentially just going to set the current operand equal to, well, nothing. And we now need to go ahead and find the AC button. And after class name, because class name is just some kind of formatting thing that we add to it, same as the onClick function here. The onClick function is also just some kind of, basically just another descriptor that we add to the button. And actually, I've broken this, so let me quickly add this back. Sorry. And now let's also add onClick equals, and we're going to just make it, this one's going to be really easy. We just basically put clear in here. And you'll notice now if I put anything in here and I click AC, it'll go ahead and clear it for us. And I'm going to take another sip of water while you digest that. And awesome. Excellent. Okay. Let's go ahead now and work on the delete button. We're making a new function here. Call it, well, let's see. What do we want to call it? Let's see if we can call it del. Yeah, let's call it del. And it's going to be pretty similar to clear, except it's going to be a little bit different. We're just going to also just run a setCo command. And we're going to do current operand, so the current value. And then we're going to slice it. So what slice is going to do is it's going to return the characters from this position to this position, not inclusive. So you'll see here we're saying, or non-inclusive on the end. So we're saying use the first character. So let's say I have like this, for example, 125, sorry. What I'm telling it is start at this 1 over here, and then keep all the characters except for the last one. This -1 means the last one. And then replace the current operand with this minus this last character. So if I hit delete, what I want it to do is go to 12. So we're going to go ahead and find our delete button. Do onClick equals del. And now if I try this, bada bing, bada boom, it'll delete my current content here. And if I have nothing, even if I hit delete, no errors, because it's basically saying go from 0 to 0, and that's not causing any issues. Now, we could go on and add the math, because that's kind of all that we're missing, but I don't know. Looking at this code, I feel like it's going to get really messy to look at as we start to add the math, right? Because, I mean, it's kind of a lot to digest, because we're just going to have a whole bunch of onClicks and headless or nameless functions, and I don't know, it's kind of yucky to me. I'm not going to lie, guys. So I'm thinking what we're going to do is, like this button tag, we can actually make our own tag for these digit buttons. So right now, we're going to go ahead and go over here. We're going to save this file first, actually. We're going to add a new file with an src by hitting this button. We're going to call this the digit button.js. Bada bing, bada boom. We're going to go over to this new JavaScript file. We're going to make a new export default function. Basically what that means is that we're going to let this be accessed by the other functions or by the other areas of our code by making it an export function. That means that the app.js will be able to import it in and then be able to use it. And go right away, actually, let's just go ahead and import this. So in order to import this, you'll have to write imports the function name, which is going to be digit button. I'm actually just going to go ahead and pass in all the parameters here. I'm going to quickly explain what I'm doing with these curly brackets. And then we'll return something. Okay, this is going to be the basic idea of our function. Oh, okay, there we go. And let's go back over here and let's now import this function into our app. So we're going to go import digit button, which is the function name from, and we're now going to access the file directory relative to this file, and it's just going to be ./digit button, and then close that with a semicolon. So now this file has access to the digit button function. You'll see here if I write digit button, you'll see that this exists right here. It's a function. But right now this function doesn't do anything. So let's go ahead and go back and write the function content. Now really what we're trying to do is make this give all of the content that we have our current buttons doing, but we want to simplify it to a smaller tag. So let's actually just go ahead and go over here and take this entire line, because that's basically what we want to make this function do. Now, what are the current issues with this? Well, one of the issues is that this file doesn't know what the add digit function is. And so in order to have it run this function, we're going to have to pass this function into the digit button function under this digit modifier alias. So right away, I'm just going to go ahead and replace digit or add digit with digit modifier. And now you'll see that it actually knows what this is because it's this parameter right here. We're going to pass this function into it, which is pretty great. But the other issue right now is that we have, our current numbers in here, and that's not going to be any good for us because we want to make this general, right? So let's go ahead and replace this with digit. Let's go ahead and replace this with digit. And now this seems like it should work. So let's go ahead and go over here. And why don't we replace this one button with our new awesome button? So let's go ahead over here. And I'm going to quickly move this in here. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to write instead my new digit button tag digit equals, and I'm going to say it's equal to 1, and then digit modifier equals, and then we're going to say this is add digit. That add digit is our function, right? And you'll notice here that something is wrong. This is giving me a whole issue. Oh, digit modifier is not a function. Let's see right here. Make sure I didn't misspell anything. No, that looks fine. And one of the things that you're going to realize right now is that this actually isn't any typo. It's something to do with how we define this function. See, when we define the function, we asked it to basically pass in this state for digit, but right now we were just passing in a number. And it's going to be another issue here with the add digit function up here as well. We also need to make this accept a digit state. Now, you don't fully need to understand why this is, but essentially, in order for this to all work, we need to be passing in the curly brackets, and also here we need to make this the curly brackets so it accepts it as a parameter and not as text. And now everything seems like it should be working, except it's not, which is very funny. Oh, I'm not entirely sure what I did wrong the first time. Oh, let's see here. It looks like I am a stinky bozo. Can you guys see that? I missed an I. Alright, well, that does it for you. Now you'll see that our one button is working as planned, and it just looks a little cleaner. I mean, compare these two lines right here. It's just much cleaner overall. And I think that Right now is a good time to just go ahead and switch this out for all of them. So here we can just switch this for 2, just a much cleaner design, more scalable as well. Let me do this here. 4, 5, 6. Do this here. Do this here. Do this here. 7, 8, 9, and then 2 more. One of these, and then these 0. And I'm going to quickly go ahead and make sure these all work. Perfect, awesome sauce. Okay. Next thing we're going to do here, I forgot where we left off. Delete works, clear works. Looks like all we have left is the math. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is make a function called setMath. So essentially what this function is going to do is it's going to be when I hit any of these buttons, any of these side buttons here, it's going to start to set up for the math itself. Because you'll notice when we use the calculator, actually, when you hit the button right away, nothing really happens. You kind of enter this first setup, and then you can do your math afterwards when you hit the next number and the enter sign. So we're going to set up that first section. So it's going to be called setMath. I'm going to take in an operation, and it's going to, and one of the reasons why I'm going to go ahead and do this right here, accept the state right away, is because I'm also going to do the digit button. I'm going to make a new button called the operation button. And so it's just going to be easier if we scale it right away. So I'm going to essentially do this. I'm going to, well, when I hit the button, what do I want it to really do? I just basically want it to set my display operation to whatever operation I passed in. So for example, if I look over here, when I hit this, I want it to display up here. And so let's go ahead and do that right now, shall we? Alrighty. Let's go ahead and right away, instead of incorporating it into the code with our old button tags, let's go ahead and make a operation button off the bat. So operation button .js. And I'm actually going to copy all of the digit button code over because it's going to be very similar. And I'm also going to import it right away. We'll do this. Oh, oops. There we go. Import operation button from operation button. And then in operation button, essentially what we're going to do here is instead of having a digit, we're just going to have an operation. Instead of a digit modifier, we're going to have an operation modifier. I'm just going to add this here. Operation. Sorry, let me try to make sure you guys can see all of this. Operation. So it looks, and I'm going to quickly cycle through them, very, very similar because it's basically the same code. And right now I'm going to go ahead and make sure you guys have enough time to copy this down. Oh, one quick thing, we need to change this to operation button. And cool. Looks about right to me. And I'm going to go in here and quickly replace this immediately. So, for example, this division, I almost forgot what that was called. I'm going to replace it with operation button. It's going to have an operation of division. And it's going to have an operation modifier of setMath. Now I'll go ahead and bring this back out. And if I hit the division symbol, nothing's going to happen yet. Let's hope that this does work out really quickly. Let me go ahead and make one for all of them here. Oh, one quick issue we have is, actually, never mind. I was going to say something, but I was wrong. Let's go ahead and incorporate this into all of them. Wow, look at how clean that looks. I mean, you can just see like very distinctly an operation or the digit button that we wouldn't have if we just did the normal button tags from before. So let's see if this actually does anything. So right now we're actually getting a bit of an issue, and part of the reason is that we didn't actually tell it everything we needed to do. So originally we just thought we could change the display operation, but the actual display operation state isn't displayed anywhere. we need to add our display operation to our actual display here. So here I'm going to also have our previous operand and our display operation. So now if I do this, you'll see, if I refresh the page, if I hit a button up here, it'll actually add it to our previous operand. But notice that if I have some number and then I hit the operation, it's actually not doing what you expect a calculator to do. We'd expect if I have some number and I hit the operation that it would also move it to the previous operand and clear the space out for the next thing. So let's go ahead and add that as well to our function. So here we're also going to make it set previous operand to whatever the current operand was. So basically move the current operand to the previous operand, and we're going to clear the current operand for the next number to come in. So if I've done all this correctly and I can refresh this, you'll see here, bada bing bada boom, add blammo. Works perfectly. Awesome. Okay. With that said, in theory, all that's left to do is just, well, do some math. And so let's quickly go ahead and make a new function. We're going to make, and this is going to be our longest function, so kind of bear with me here. We're going to make a function and we're going to make it called execute math. And we're going to make this happen whenever we hit the equal sign. But this execute math function is first going to make two constant variables, one called previous, and we're going to parse a float. Basically what this means is that we're going to take these strings that our previous operand is, and we're going to turn it into a float instead of a string, because we need to do math with it. We're also going to make a current one, and this is going to house our float version of our current operand right here. And we're going to then make a switch case. A switch case is essentially just, it checks the status of display operation here, and then I can make a case for every single operation. And it's so, if this is equal to whatever the case is, then it'll execute the code below it. So let's make a case for all of them real fast. Let's make a case for the minus sign. Let's make a case for the multiplication, and then let's make a case for division. Awesome. Okay, and here we're going to, well, let's think about it. What do we want to set our current operand to when we, well, oh, it died on me. Hold on. And so, well, let's think about it. What do we want to set our current operand to when we do a mathematical operation? We want to set it to the result, right? So right away, let's go ahead and set our current operand to the previous plus the current. And it's really important that we convert this back to a string. Because or else what's going to happen is that it's going to put the current operand as a number, and when we try to add more numbers to it, it's going to cause issues, because instead of like here stacking the 2 and the 3, it'll actually add them together like this and result in a 5, which would be bad and just not what we want, right? It'd be like this instead of, whoops, that's not a 3. It'd be like, I can do operations, hold on, 2 plus 3, there we go. It'll do that instead of this, right? And so in order to fix that, we convert it to a string when we put it back in. We're then also going to clear the previous operands, and we're finally going to set the operation to null again, because we're going to await a new operation, and then you have to end all of these with a break. Every single case has to have its own little break here. And in fact, every case is basically the same, except instead of doing addition, it might do a different kind of math. And so real quickly, let's go ahead and do this for all of them. And let's go ahead and also add this to we need a default case as well. So in case none of these are working, I just want it to break. So in case you run this function without any numbers, it'll just end the loop. It'll just end the switch case. So let's go ahead and add this to our equal sign. It's going to be our on click here. On click equals execute math. And now hopefully this will work. Yay! Awesome. Our calculator is doing a pretty good job. And so now what do we still need to do? Well, let's think about it. Let's just quickly, mess around, take a quick moment to like play around with our math here. And looks to me like for the most part it's working pretty well. All the math seems to add up. Um, but there is kind of an issue, right? Well, normally when like with the calculator, right? If you take the calculator out on your phone, if you do a math operation and then you get the result and then you add another number, you want it to clear. And then I'll show you here actually. If I do this, right? I want it to get ready for my next math operation, right? I want it to just like, okay, I got the 38, cool. Now instead of doing that, I want to do like 2 plus 6, right? I want it to get ready for that. And in our current calculator right now, it's just going to add another number to it, which is not what we want. It's actually kind of a bad thing. So let's go ahead and make it so that our calculator actually clears after we input a new number when our operation is done. And to do that, we have to come back to actually the very top over here. And outside of our app, make a variable, a Boolean variable, a variable that can only be true or false, and set it to false. And this answered variable is just going to be turned to true whenever we've finished a math operation. And so let's go ahead and add it actually to our execute math over here. And basically what I want it to do is, whoops, I want it to basically whenever we do any math operation, which will run execute math, I want to set it to true. And then afterwards in our add digit code, what I want it to do is add another thing here in our if statement, in our else statement, which if answered is true, then I want it to first clear the current operand, essentially, and then set answer to false. So now with this, you'll see if I add another number after a math operation, it's not working. So let's quickly see what we've gone ahead and done wrong here. Oh, this should be an else statement because we don't want it to run both of them. One thing that's important to note is that when you update a state, it doesn't happen immediately. For example, if I did like, write this down here. If I did like set CO1 and then I did set CO2, this doesn't set it first to 1 and then to 2. It might actually just keep it at 1 or keep it at 2 or might not even do anything. It's weird. They don't work in direct order. They kind of take their own time and they can get skipped if you do them in succession. So in that old state, what was happening was it was basically just skipping over this line because it had this one to do. But now if I do it, it should work. You'll see it clears after an operation because our answered is being set to true. We're telling it, okay, clear it after it gets a new number, and then we set answered equal to false because afterwards, well, we don't want it to clear when we add a new number here because we're trying to make a longer number. Alrighty, well, it looks like for the most part we're done, but it's some more final touches that we need to add here as well. Let's see. One thing, for example, is if you'll see I just did it right there. If I try to switch symbols, let's say I accidentally hit plus and I go to the multiplication sign, it's going to clear all of my previous operand and leave us in this weird state. And that's not good. The issue is that we're doing this up here. We're always telling it to clear the previous operand because we're assuming that when they put the symbol, they had something in the current operand, but that's not always true. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to add another if statement. We're going to only clear the previous operand if the current operation is equal to null. Essentially, if we haven't solidified an operation to go to, then we want it to fully clear. That is to say, for example, if I haven't clicked one of these buttons yet, then I want it to fully move this up into the top and clear everything else, right? Like this. But if we have already done that and we're just trying to switch operations, then what we're going to do is I'm going to have an else statement and say then only switch the operation. So now you'll see if I hit a different operation, it'll keep my previous number, but just change the operation for me. Just another cool feature to add to our calculator here to let the user have some more flexibility. And now there's one final issue, and I actually didn't fix it in this calculator. You'll notice that if I basically just kind of put a symbol, I'm going to get another error because, well, there's no math to do, right? Sorry about that, recovering from COVID a little bit. And so that's another thing that we need to fix in this set math function. We're going to do it like this. We're going to say if, yeah, we're going to do, how do I want to fully implement this? We're going to wrap this all in an if statement, and we're only going to run this if the current operand does not equal, right, is not equal to just, well, nothing. We only want this to happen if there's actually something in the current operand. And so with that said, now you'll see if I add any of these symbols, it won't do anything. And now if I do have a number, it'll actually do the math properly here. And yes, this will work, but there is one issue that we didn't realize, which is now that the current operand is 0, I can't switch my math symbol. And so that's another thing we can do. We can make this actually we can also make this check if there's something in the previous operand, because if the previous operand is not empty, well, then we also want it to be able to do it. So let's do this. Let's say or, which you can do with these vertical symbols here, or if the previous operand is not equal to 0. So if there's actual content in the previous operand, then you can also switch the math symbol. Let's go ahead and incorporate that. And now let's refresh the page, and bada bing, bada boom. Now we can do this again. And, well, that's kind of the basic calculator. I'm sorry if this is a little confusing. Feel free to go back and rewatch this for anything that you might have missed. I might have gone a little fast there, but this is the very basic calculator, and feel proud of yourself. I mean, this was not by any means an easy project, and there's a lot of logic that we had to incorporate, and really good job for sticking with it and kind of sitting through this with me. There are a lot of bug fixes still that you could do. I mean, this is by far not the perfect calculator. You'll notice here, I kind of wish that the clear would also clear this previous operand. And, you know, I could keep going on and on with features that I wish this had, right? But I kind of want you to explore it on your own and see if you can make it better. And in fact, this is bugging me a lot, so I'm going to fix this one as I say our goodbyes here. And I think I should be able to do this by also just setting the previous operand equal to 0, but this might also cause another issue. You see, now, oh, I also need to set the display operation equal to nothing, or equal to null, sorry. But now there's also this other issue in that if I make a mistake on this number, for example, now I would have to, if I hit AC, it's going to clear the old thing as well. So I'd have to hit delete twice, and that's not very good either. So maybe what we need to do is do this so that this only clears this if the previous operand is equal to nothing. Which actually makes a lot of sense, because if you think about it, if the previous operand doesn't have anything in it, then, wait, this did not actually fix the issue. So maybe, so we were at this point, right? And so we do now have, okay, so now that we've added these two, you'll see that I can actually fix my mistake here, but you'll notice also that if I make a mistake on this number and I try to clear it, it will actually clear everything instead of just this number. I'd have to hit delete now if I want to get rid of it, and that's kind of inconvenient. So maybe what we should do is only make this happen, only make these last two deletes happen if the current operand is equal to nothing. Then we'll let it delete all of this, and let's see if this works. And beautiful. Oh my goodness, that's so much cleaner. And yeah, I mean, I could just keep going on and on. I just wanted to add that last in as a little fun Easter egg for those of you that chose to stick around. But I mean, this calculator is really, really strong. I should have saved this all, by the way. And I'm going to name this Final Calculator app. But even though you could always add more to it. But yeah, thank you all for sticking with me. Sorry for these last two lessons being virtual. But I hope that you guys feel really relieved. I know we haven't really done a lot of hands-on projects, right? We've mainly been doing we've mainly been doing a lot of concepts, like learning about state, learning about div tags, learning about everything. But this is kind of your first project, putting it all together, and feel proud of yourself. Customize this, keep working on it however you want to. And yeah, this has been Andreas signing off. Take care, everybody.